Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean and today I'm doing a book unboxing and a new editing explained video series. So let's get into it. First off, I have to welcome two new members to my bookshelf family, beginning with my favorite gremlin, Flasher Gremlin. So here we are. It has the trench coat, it has cigarettes, glasses, a beer, cards, then like poker chips. Down here there's, oh, the little stuffed animal. I love that part in the movie because it's a little hand puppet being controlled by another puppet. So I just love that. And it also has, looks like another hand, and we also have like a mallet here. So Flasher Gremlin, my favorite. Warning, the following content is not suitable for all ages. How cool is that? Also, the other thing I got today was Mogwai. Isn't he so cute? Okay, there we go. There's our new additions to the bookshelf family. So today in the mail, I got this from Amazon. Well, actually, it's like 5 things, but one of them is very special to me. Let's open it up. Ooh, I didn't even need scissors. Here it is, the first time I've held it in my hands, and man, it's a huge book. But, oh, this is also a cover reveal. Ottoman Destiny. This is the 4th Trevor Knight book. So, this is the 4th draft, and it's the first red pen draft where I'll begin to edit the book. Look at this. I haven't even looked at this yet, but man, that's amazing. Just about 650 pages. I should also say this is the second cover I think I've done completely by myself. The first one was Keeping Strong, which is right behind this book. Keeping Strong. That was the first cover I did all by myself, I think. But yeah, so I was real proud of that. And so I just published this. Gosh, I don't even know when I published this. This year or last year? I don't know. I think last year around November. No, just before November. What's the month before November? It's October. So, But anyway, Ottoman Destiny. Let's just take a moment for me to appreciate this. Like I say, this is the first time I've held this book in my hands. So I'm real excited about it. Let's check it out. The cover looks like it turned out pretty well. This part I actually really like down here. When I made the cover, like the actual thing between them was like some bush or something. So what I did is I took this part of the cover, the little mosque thing or dome that's behind them, and I like cropped that and I moved it so it's behind them. So it's not just a weird plain bush or whatever. So I really like that. That's a nice touch. Should I read the back to you guys? I guess so, just because whatever. So you can kind of have an idea of what this book is about. But I just wrote this up in about 5 minutes or so. I really don't pay much attention to the back of books at all. I'm actually thinking of not even having book summaries for my books because I just never read them. I know some people do, of course, a lot of people probably do, but I don't ever read the back of books, so I don't really put any time or thought into them. But this is just what I came up with, and since this is just a rough draft, this is, again, just something I came up with in 5 minutes or so, so I don't know if I'm going to keep this at all, but it reads 1453, Constantinople, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Constantinople falls to the invading Ottoman Empire. Legend says the city's final emperor, Constantine XI, was miraculously encased in marble, destined to return to free the city from the Muslim occupiers. In the present day, a statue is discovered deep beneath Istanbul, and a king from a bygone era returns to wage war. Trevor Knight is still dealing with the trauma he endured the previous year in Syria, which references Syrian danger. After a respite in his new main home, he returns to Syria, where he is quickly caught up in a war. The new Turkish president seeks to expand his country's territory by force and usher in a golden age of Islam and conquest. And this is kind of hard to read because it says not for resale on here, but it says from a mountainous Turkish prison to the, I don't know what that word is. Oh, to the island of Cyprus, where war erupts between, there we go, Turkey and Greece, and ultimately to Istanbul for a legendary king's attempt to retake the city. Knight is swept into a war between two men who seek to restore former empires. So that's the back of the book. Just wrote it in about 5 minutes. Yeah. Now, I would like to begin an editing explained video. So this is where I go through the edits I'm making to the book and explain why I am making these changes. Just so you guys can have an inside look at my writing and more specifically my editing process. A lot of writers will say they hate editing. Personally, I love it. This is my favorite part of the writing process. I absolutely love editing, and so I enjoy talking about it. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is the 4th draft. So this is the first time I have edited this book. So there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of red ink. The earlier drafts I was focusing more on just getting the story out, making sure the plot was consistent, making sure the characters all made sense and so on. So this time I'm actually really focused on the writing. Ottoman Destiny, here we go. So first off, you see I have this note, can move up. What that refers to is this little section here. I wonder if I should like have it like center page or kind of up, because that spot begins kind of higher up. The next page begins higher up, this begins higher up, but there's lots of like blank page beneath all that. So I kind of want to decide whether I want to have it higher or more centered on the page. Here we get into the dedication. And so what I have here, this book is dedicated to all the victims. I've just got rid of all because it's kind of unnecessary, of repression at the hands of Ottoman and Turkish hands. What I realized I did here is I repeated hands. So I really was stumped for a while trying to figure out how to rewrite this. So for now I just came up with this book is dedicated to the victims of the Ottoman and Turkish regimes. So I don't know, I think it's a little bit better. Gets rid of a repetition of hands. I've wanted to add maps to my books for a while because the Trevor Knight series in particular is like very globe spanning, and there's like lots of travel to different locations. And some of them are fictitious, but I wanted to have a map so readers will know, like, you know, where to put things. And so, you know, I thought, well, maybe I could just get a map from online, but then I was worried about like copyright issues. And also, again, I wanted to have some fictional names, fictional places. So I kind of knew I had to make the map myself. So I just looked up on YouTube like how to make maps on Microsoft Word, and over the course of 3 or 4 days I made maps for this book. So I'm really excited about that. I love that a lot. I think it adds a lot to it just to be able to visualize that. So I love the maps. This is the first map I made for the book, so I did this all by myself, just drawing it on like Microsoft Word. So I think I may move it down a little bit because like this is center page. So I don't know, I think I could move it down just a space, but yeah, that's the first map I made. I really like it, so I'm proud of that. Prologue, marshal your troops for a city under siege. So here we begin. First, I don't know, the headers here, I'm not sure I really like this font. So I may change that font. I don't know what to, but that's just something that as I was flipping through the book, I was kind of like, I don't really like that font. So right here, the first change we see, pulling coarse, damp black hair out of his eyes. What I kind of thought for that was, well, is that a contradiction? Because I mean, if hair is damp, is it still coarse? And so I don't know. I was kind of like, but in the end, I decided, just be better, cut it. Down here, it's talking about the Muslims attacking Italy. And so I had this little description, the boot-shaped peninsula. What I thought for that, since I don't have a map of Italy in this book, readers may not quite know what that is, like the boot-shaped peninsula. What's that? I mean, some people would know that's Italy, but, you know, not everyone would. So I thought it'd be better just to get rid of that, so I just changed it to Italy. And since I made that change, rather than unite against the Islamic threat to Italy, well, since right here I say to Italy, so I didn't want that repetition. Readers should know I'm talking about Italy, so rather than unite against the Islamic threat, and so on. And right here, this is just kind of my minimalist style taking over, so intense feuds between rival lords spiraled out of control. So for that, even though intense feuds between rival lords spiraled out of control sounds fine, I think it's just kind of overdoing it. Intense doesn't really add anything to that sentence, so just cut it and it's feuds between rival lords spiraled out of control. So right here you can see how many changes I'm making like per page to the book, and this is pretty common, so you'll see this throughout the book. It's my first time editing it, so lots of stuff to go through. Again, this is kind of like my minimalist style taking over. Grew seasick, a storm which slowly and constantly picked up strength. That's also a little bit passive, I think, so just condense it by saying a worsening storm turned his stomach over. So saves on a lot of words and much more condensed. This right here, as they drew near to their destination, the devout on the galley began to pray. I thought some people may think there was like a missing word here, like the devout what? Is this like the devout, priest, the devout warrior? Is that describing one person? When it's meant to describe like the whole group, like all the devout Muslims on this galley. So I changed it just to faithful to hopefully not have readers get confused there thinking like I missed a word. So as they drew near to their destination, the faithful on the galley began to pray. This is a mistake I think I make on a lot of my first drafts. I don't know if it's a mistake really, but it's just kind of the way I write. I will tend to do this. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw whatever. And you don't really need that because that doesn't add anything, like just saying he looked over and saw. So I just continue with the action. A seagull landed a few feet from him. That's a lot more condensed than saying, glancing over his shoulder, he saw a seagull, land a few feet from him. You don't need to have all that, so just start with the action. A seagull landed a few feet from him. Just getting rid of repetition, so bow made of wood, horn, Oxford, and sinew, glued together and bound with animal tendons. Well, this is just repetition and bound. Well, I'm saying it's glued, so of course it's bound. So it's just repetition. So, and sinew glued together with animal tendons. I could also say bound together with animal tendons, but I don't know. I kind of like glued there. I am a big advocate of said, so if we survive the day, Abdallah crumbled. I think a lot of writers try to avoid said because they think it's like just weak writing, but I disagree. I think words like grumbled and muttered and sighed and so on are far more distracting. Birds! Than just saying said. Said is perfectly fine. Readers' eyes will just skip over it. Birds! I'm sorry they're not like fully covered, so they're like fully awake. So you may hear the birds more in this video. I apologize for that. Just trying to sharpen up the writing here. So the sun was still down, but the sky was heavily gray and full of blackened clouds. There are several was's there, and that's kind of indicative of passive writing style. So I wanted to like touch that up. So the sun had yet to rise, but the sky was heavily gray and blotted by darkened... Why did I cut clouds there? I don't know. I'll have to check that out. Soon a fourth band of Muslim pirates. I just got rid of Muslim because it's very clear in this prologue that these are all Muslims who are in on this raid. And right down there I got rid of another Muslims, so while a few men remained behind, blah blah blah. There's another one down here, but seeing the pack of Muslims, I think I'd just say, but seeing the odds stacked against them, chose instead to flee or surrender. So just getting rid of repetition of Muslims. While the militia of Rome, it's pretty clear it's already Rome because I say right there, so unnecessary. So while the militia regrouped atop the walls, I don't need to say it's Rome. You know it's Rome. Just quickening the pace, Abdallah believed, however, that blah blah blah. However is unnecessary, so cut it. Okay, and here we get into the second prologue chapter of the book. That's right, there are 2 prologues in this book. I am channeling my inner Brandon Sanderson. So the thing with this second prologue, there's a lot of detail here which comes across I think is very almost historical, less like reading a novel, and at times more like reading a history book. So I thought I may need to change this chapter a lot, but rereading it for this draft, I really didn't think it was too bad because it was only like, 5-6 pages. Since this is the second prologue, I know a lot of readers will like want to get into the book, and this isn't really the main plot here. This is just like setting stuff up. So I really want to get through it as quickly as I can while also keeping all the important information. So what I'm doing here is just trying to make sure I'm doing that as efficiently as I could. So I don't even want to go through like all of the changes, but I'll just kind of show you guys like the overview. So there's like a large section there that I got rid of. There's another sentence down there I got rid of. Added a bit. Oh, looks like I added a lot there. That page is pretty good. But yeah, here we go. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So really actually not too many changes in this prologue. I thought it was worse. Oh, here's another map I did. So I really like that. So this is part 1, Sleep and Slumber in Folded Hands. And this is my second map for the book. And here you can see what I was talking about fake names. So right there, Camp Kate, a fictional location. This is of course a reference to Syrian Dander, where Trevor and Kate set up this humanitarian camp, Camp Kate in Syria. So right there you actually see the location of it. So I really like that. So all these locations really do appear in some point, usually in this act or at least in the book itself. So every like city or town that's mentioned, I try to make sure I put it in the map. So Istanbul, Bursa, Ankara, Izmir, Bodrum, Konya. I should probably not pronounce these because I'll just mispronounce them all. But yeah, so like all these locations will feature in the book. Okay, chapter 2. This switches to a different couple characters, but since those characters aren't really vital in the story, I didn't want to like have as much with them as I did originally, because I mean they're not major characters in the story, so I didn't want readers to think like, oh, I need to know these characters. So I wind up cutting a lot in this chapter. Like that's fine right there, but you see this huge chunk of stuff right there I got rid of. Actually added a lot there. Because this is a chapter I kind of want to get through as quickly as possible. So there's a lot there that I got rid of, a lot there. So I think that line means I'm actually going to continue this chapter, chapter 2, with this next, chapter. So it's not chapter 3, this is still chapter 2. And again, just cutting a lot of stuff because I kind of wanted to get rid of a lot of this. Again, a lot of stuff on that page that's fixed. Sorry I'm not going through all this with you guys, but he instructed instead of he quickly said. I know I say the thing about, I like said, but right there I just thought, well, he quickly said, that's, I don't really like that, especially the quickly part. So he instructed, and it goes on, but I don't overdo it. Again, a lot of stuff changed here. So this is just dealing with the first couple chapters, the part I told you where I was like, I wanted to cut down on it. So I think this chapter, it may threaten to slow the pacing. So I tried to make as many changes there as I could. So there's a pretty good page there. You might be curious, like, is this very difficult for me when I go to like make these changes into the computer, like being able to read and understand what all these changes mean? And really the answer is no, it is not difficult for me, because all of my like little marks I make, I like try to help myself out. So if like I want something to go in the middle of the paragraph, rather than like trying to squeeze it in there, I may just kind of draw a line to that point, and so then I'll just follow the line and I'll know, oh, I want this part here to go right here in the middle of the paragraph, and just on, just like the little marks I make, I know what they mean. So I don't really have much of a problem with like figuring out what I was trying to say. Just occasionally, like if I can't read a word maybe, or if like the writing is very small, because I tend to do write small, I figure it out. I don't really have much of a problem with it. So I don't do this often because usually I don't need to, but this is an example of like little notes I make where, you know, right here I have this line, so move to next line, CA. So that's probably over here somewhere. So right there, that's A. So I'm telling myself that something over here I want to move over to that other part up there. Just trying to tidy up the writing a little bit. So they finished their breakfast, then still early for their appointment, began a slow walk to the nearby Yelzine Park. They finished their breakfast, full stop. Still early for their appointment, they began a slow walk to the nearby park. Just trimming down the word count, as most sultans by that time made it a habit to construct. So as most sultans by that time constructed their own palaces. So just getting rid of a little bit of unnecessary words. You can see in this page is just cutting stuff and not really replacing it all, just deciding like a little word here or there could get, you know, cut. So adopted out of Egypt, I don't really need out of Egypt. Had both abandoned, so had abandoned works just as good. Perhaps just kind of slowing it down. But she could always pull herself back up. Instead, she pulled herself back up. I don't know what that's referring to. I don't remember that line, but oh well. If anything, so if anything was just unnecessary, so just start the sentence, she felt blessed and grateful. His dominant hand, just don't really need that. Is the artist still living? You don't really need still there, so is the artist still living? Just cutting down on word count because this is a big book, so anything I can do to get rid of words I think is a good thing. Hey, speaking of getting rid of words, there's a lot of words I got rid of right there. This is a change I make just for pacing and kind of like paragraphing, so I think this is Dahlia. Hey, a character from Egyptian Demise. That's kind of a little minor spoiler there. So Dahlia is in this book. So yes, it's fine. Nice to see you. This is Tugchi. So this line here is from Dahlia. So since there's like a gap of a paragraph, I know readers may be kind of like curious who is saying this, and I didn't want to have another tag saying like Dahlia said. So since, I don't know, I just moved it back up there to join the rest of her dialogue, just so it can all be in one section, so that way it's not like taking up multiple paragraphs. I'm not going to go through it all, but you can see I added there, cut there, add some there, cut, cut a lot there, add some stuff there, trimming down stuff there. Right here we have some more stuff, mostly cutting it looks like, but adding a little bit, so just rewriting it a bit. Just trying to make it a little less wordy, so she would have inhaled to see if she could test the scent of the air for seawater, but knew there were a couple stinky garbage bins. So changed it to she didn't inhale to see if she could detect the scent of the sea because she knew there were a couple sneaky garbage bins. So I don't know if it's too much better, but I think it's a little bit better. So that's the goal. Just little improvement with each draft. Ooh, a lot of changes there. So just getting rid of stuff. Right here, I don't really want to go into it, but it says how this character, like, you know, checks out some lady's butt briefly, but it really didn't matter because first off, this is not from his point of view. So the readers shouldn't really see him looking at her. And I mean, I could change it to like saying, you know, someone else observes him looking at this woman, but it's really just not important. And it's not important to the character. It's not important to the book. It's not important to the plot. It's just not important at all. So I just cut it. But the main problem with it fundamentally was it was a switch in point of view. So this chapter is from Tugchi's point of view. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, and she's a major character. But this is describing another character, so since the chapter is from Tugchi's point of view, and since this character isn't really important to the story, I just cut it. It's not important. Oh, there's a lot more there, but you can see I added some there, so it's not like all cut. But With this chapter, I definitely wanted to trim down on it some because, like I say, I was trying to like go into this other character's backstory, and ultimately I decided I didn't need it because the chapter in the book is really not about him. It's about Tugchi. So I tried to keep it only from her point of view and only things that she knows about him or things that she observes about him. This is something Microsoft Word does that I hate. So if the book, like the chapter ends like at the very end of the page or near to it, for whatever reason, the next page will be blank and then it goes on. And it has something to do with like the text ending at the very bottom of the page, because then when you do like the section break to do the next chapter, for whatever reason, Microsoft Word is like, oh, I think there's text here when there's really not, because for some reason it thinks that that carries over to there. So that is just one big blank page. And so that throws off all my like page numbering and all that. One thing I know is supposed to help it is something I think called orphan control. That is where like if just like one word is on the next page, it'll like somehow like space it differently. So maybe like, you know, 2 lines will appear on the next page or something, not just like 1 line. It'll be, you know, 2 or 3 lines will carry over. But I don't know why it does this. So if anyone knows, let me know, because this is just annoying and it's difficult to figure out. The only way I know I could prevent this is to like have like manual spaces instead of just like having a section break. I have to like delete the section break and just, you know, make sure the font like starts there. But this is just something with Microsoft Word that's annoying. There are some things about Microsoft Word that just drive me crazy. This is one of them. Another is like headers and footers and page numbers. It's just so annoying. And large chunk of stuff there that I got rid of. A little bit there I added. A little bit there I cut. This is me just trying to be cute, and I'm not. So the jawbreaker sized ball of alcohol. Well, I don't know. So just the alcohol in his belly. That was just weird description, so got rid of it. Just little parts that I decided to cut. This part I'll just go through why I cut it is because it's like talking about pain in his ribs, which is supposed to be like alluding to Syrian dander where he breaks a few ribs. But I kind of realized looking back or whatever as I was reading this, that this doesn't really come into the story at all. So it's not like he gets in a fight later where his ribs get punched and he, you know, it badly hurts him. So it never like has any kind of payoff or anything. It's just alluding to the previous book. It doesn't have any impact on this book. And it never has any impact on the book going forward. I mean, his ribs are never mentioned again. So I just cut it. Even though I like that it's like referencing, you know, the previous book and he's still a little bit banged up because his ribs were broken a few months ago. Since it doesn't have any impact in the rest of the story, it doesn't have any callback. He doesn't get in a fight and he gets punched in the ribs. It's just unimportant here, so I just cut it. Real minor change, but Tugchi was about 6 years old when disaster nearly struck. I realized later in this chapter that I definitely say she was 6 at this time, so I cut about just because I realized it was unnecessary. She's not about 6, she is 6. This is an example of how the maps come into play. So right here I say those who lived in Gaziantep on the southern border, not far from Aleppo, Syria. Well, I don't really need to say all that because you could look on the map here and right there is Gaziantep on the border with Syria. So all I needed to say here was those who lived in Gaziantep on the southern border. So you check out Turkey, look at the southern border. Oh, there's Gaziantep. Oh, right near Syria. Sweet. Just trimming down the word count, Prime Minister Bayadi's voice quickly began to trail away. Well, voice trailed away. A lot more concise. Kind of along the same lines, but this is also just terrible writing. Prime Minister Bayadi, who was well known among everyone to be the real power behind the president. So around everyone was just terribly bad. So who is known to be the real power behind the president. This is just kind of an aside, but hesitating is a word I like always misspell. So for some reason, I always try to do like Hestit. I always forget like the first I after the S. So I don't know. Just for some reason, my fingers always misspell hesitating. That's a word that always gets me every time. And I'll know before I write it, like, oh, here it comes, hesitating. Okay, take a breath, spell it correctly. Nope, I'll get it wrong every single time. Sometimes there are simply too many changes I need to make to a book. And that would apply here. So right here, I just say revise for all of that. And the reason is because I just know there's a lot of stuff here I want to work around and fix, and just condense it and be a lot more efficient with how I present all the information. So I don't exactly know how I'll change all that. Really, I'll probably actually do it pretty easily, but I'll need to sit before the computer and do this, just because I'll probably want to type and retype it a few times and figure out like exactly where to start. So for this, in all likelihood, what I'll wind up doing is like, figure out like, oh, maybe this sentence down here is a better start for the paragraph. And then maybe I could take like this sentence here and do that second. And then maybe like this sentence down here will be third. This sentence here will be fourth. And then like all of that can get cut. All of that can get cut. All of that can get cut. And then just end it with that sentence. This isn't actually so much an edit. This is more just a little scene I want to point out that I am really fond of. But in this scene here, Osman, who is Tugchi's brother, is like trying to get her away kind of from Alfred. Like he doesn't like Alfred and Tugchi talking together, and they're kind of like in a budding relationship. So here Osman is like, well, so long. He's taken his sister away. Out of view of her brother, Tugchi held her fingers up, waving marginally. So she's just kind of like, giving him a little wave goodbye. Russell gave a weak smile for her as he led her away. Then, I don't know whether I want to have this on the same paragraph or whatever, but that is what that line usually means, would be a new paragraph. So, I don't know. It is the Blue Mosque, right? And also, I don't have any like dialogue tag for that. I kind of just depend on readers picking it up based on context. Osman turned his expression uncertain. The name of the mosque, continued Russell. So that establishes that dialogue was definitely from him. Right across from Hagia Sophia. I don't know. I never know pronunciation. Yes, that's the Blue Mosque, Osman says. Russell nodded and Tugchi made the briefest of eye contact before turning back with her brother and heading away. Wrapping her arm behind her back, she held her fingers open and outstretched. 5. Russell smiled. Message received and understood. Time and place set. So basically, they just set a date. So Russell's like, it is the Blue Mosque, right? He refers earlier in the chapter to like a mosque he really likes looking at. So just as Osman is taking Tugchi away, he says it's the Blue Mosque. And so Russell's like, it's sort of like two meanings. So he's trying to say like, that is the name of the mosque, right? But what he's really doing is telling Tugchi, hey, let's meet up at the Blue Mosque. And so she is like, the Blue Mosque. And that's why she puts her hand behind her back and holds it open. So she tells him 5 o'clock. So meet me at the Blue Mosque at 5 o'clock. It's just a little scene that I really like because it's all really implied. The only thing that happens in this chapter is Osman just kind of, taking steps back with Tugchi, his sister, just kind of leading her a little away. He never like outright tells her though, or tells Russell like, I don't want you two together. It's purely in his body language. He's just kind of trying to get her away. And so just kind of without Osman noticing, they kind of have this little secret message with each other. Meet at the Blue Mosque at 5 o'clock. So I don't know. I just really am fond of that scene. Here we are, page 177, and we're done with the first act. So that is just the first act of 4. In case you're wondering, right here, I want this to go over there, of course. I like to have like, the act titles always appear on the right side of the page. And so the next chapter would, of course, supposed to start over there. But because of the blank page I told you about earlier, that throws off my pagination. So this is supposed to go over there. This page is supposed to be right there. And so this chapter would begin right there. That's something I definitely try to focus on in my books, is just how I want to have the chapters, like where to begin. So this is just with act titles. So I want the act title to be over there, and then the next chapter appears over there. But every other chapter could begin on the left or right side of the page. I don't care. But anyway, that is just act 1 of the book. That's all I've edited to this point. So just to flip through and give you guys an idea of like overall how it looks. So I don't know. I don't think it really looks that bad. I mean, somewhere around like 6 corrections per page, maybe 7, 8. I don't know. Probably about 7 or so, but definitely a lot of changes there. Oh, I want to show you guys more of the maps. So that's the second map. The first map is right there. Oh, before I forget, this is the problem of trying to do what I was talking about before, where like manually have the chapter, you know, start at whatever. That's because this line was probably, when I was editing, was at the last part of the page. And so I, you know, deleted the section break and like manually hit backspace to try to have it be in the right spot. But of course it wasn't. For some reason that appears like a few lines into the page. So since I manually deleted the section break, the chapter for whatever reason appears in the middle of the page like that. So that's all because of that stupid thing where when the chapter ends at the very end of the page, how the next page will just be blank and then the chapter will start on the next page. So I just hate that. That's just a problem with Microsoft Word. So of course, when I go to edit, I'll have to make a note to make sure to reinsert the section break there. I know I wanted to show you guys the maps, but this is just kind of a little scene I was just flipping through the book and saw. So it's Paris, France. It's talking about like the presidential mansion. In 1917, an escaped chimpanzee, this is all true by the way, entered the palace and tried to haul the wife of President Raymond Poincaré into a tree. Amused by this anecdote, Poincaré's successor, Paul Deschanel, occasionally stunned his guests by climbing the trees and imitating a chimp. So that was, of course, just a funny little tidbit I must have read, like reading up on Wikipedia about the palace. And so I wanted to include that just for depth or whatever. And I think it's funny, and French people. So just this president or prime minister or whoever it was climbed trees and, you know, imitated a chimp. And you could just imagine like how his guests were like, what the hell is going on? But French people. Oh, again, here's another thing before we get into the maps. This is something I stole directly from Walter Moore's. So Kate is hiding out on the ship, and there's these Turkish soldiers on this ship, like hunting for people. And so here you have this thing, step, 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 step. I'll definitely want to fix like how that appears on the page. Step. That is exactly taken from Walter Moore's The 13.5 Lives of Captain Blue Bear, Walter Moore's. There's just a little drawing he does just to show you guys. But anyway, he does this thing here where it's boom, boom, boom. It's some like big spider creature walking through the forest. Boom, 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 boom. Boom. So I just wanted to do that in my own book. So with my book, I just wanted to imitate that. So step, 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 step. Again, I want to fix how that appears on the page. Step. And again, there's a blank page. Freaking Microsoft Word. But anyway, I just love it. Completely a tribute to Walter Moore's. So I'm not like trying to take originality for that. I'm not claiming originality for that. That's entirely taken from Walter Moore's, but I wanted to use it at some point, so there you go. Part 3 map. Ships from Katim come to ruin. Katim, I think, was the original name or the biblical name for Cyprus, which... Cyprus. So, there you go. For some reason, when this copied the little city or place indicator there, that little dot there, it should go right there. But for some reason, it copied over there. So, that's the map of Cyprus for Act 3. There is no map for Act 2 because it's all like on a prison complex, which is actually referred to over here. Right here, Act 2 takes place in Mount Kakar prison over there. So that's why I have that little map indication right there. So that's what that refers to in Act 2. So I don't have a map for Act 2. All it is Mount Kakar prison. Finally, Act 4, again, you see the pagination, whatever, screwing me up. So there's a blank page. It should not be there. The map should be over there, and that should be over there. But Part 4, Funeral Fires Lament Former Kings. And so you have this map here. I think this map is definitely my best because this was, of course, the third map I made. So my map making skills was getting better. I actually drew in the waves for all the sea. In the other maps I just did the very coastline, so just 3 lines. But for this one I decided to do the entire thing. And really it was because since there was so much coastline, there would have just been little gaps between each part, and it would have looked weird. So for this map, I think it would have looked better just to have the whole sea drawn in. But again, so says all the locations of the act. So Kakshmi birds, Istanbul, Gezebe, Bursa, Izmir, Bodrum. There's roads down there, Crete. So I really like that map. Oh, there's a couple islands in there. Aegean Sea. So I really like the maps. Once this act is finished and I make the changes into the computer, I will do at least 3 more drafts, maybe 4. Something I may do going forward for this book is for each draft, begin on a different act. So this draft I just worked on normally straight through. Prologue, first act, second act, third act, fourth act. What I think I'll do for the other drafts is start at a different act each time. So second act, third act, fourth act. And that way, whenever I begin the draft, I'll have most of my energy at that point. So that particular act in whichever draft I'm on will have more thorough editing because this is a big book. It's, somewhere in the vicinity of 600 pages or so. And so if I just edit it normally front to back, the front of the book will be pretty well or thoroughly edited, and the further into it I go, the tireder I'll get, and the more I'll just want to get done with it. So beginning with different acts, I'll be able to be much more thorough at that point. So I think that's just a good way to keep everything fresh and to stay thorough and ensure the book is thoroughly edited all the way through, and that it's not just edited real well at the front of the book and then scarcely edited at the back of the book. Hey, there's me. But anyway, that is Ottoman Destiny. Just the first act edited so far. 3 acts to go. Anyway, that is it for the first editing explained, the 4th draft of Ottoman Destiny. I'm definitely going to do more editing drafts, so if you're interested in that, be sure to keep a lookout for it. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time. I'm sorry I talked so much in this video. Bye.